The impact of recent climate change can be demonstrated by examining one region of the world, the Northwest Passage. For hundreds of years, mankind was searching for a northern path that connected the Far East with Europe. They all failed until the 20th century, when two small ships pioneered the route. Today, that passage exists for the first time in recorded history for normal shipping traffic. Early maps of America included a Strait of Anine that connected the Pacific to Atlantic. It was never discovered. It also turns out California wasn't an island. In 1845, Sir John Franklin attempted to cross through the Northwest Passage with two steam-powered sailing ships. The ships were trapped in ice, which eventually crushed the ships' hulls. Sir Franklin and the 129 crew members of the Terror and the Erebus never returned. A land expedition discovered the ruins near King William's Island 10 years later, in 1855. In 1903, Norwegian Ronald Edmondson thought a smaller, lower-draft craft could survive the winter without getting the hull crushed. It took his team of 7 3 years to travel from the Atlantic to the Pacific. They learned to live off the land from the natives during the first winter before attempting their journey west. It wasn't until 1940 when the second successful crossing was completed by Canadian RCMP and Norwegian native Henry Larsen and his crew of 11. They traveled west to east. The St. Roch was a mobile police station and was designed to set up camp for the winter somewhere in the Arctic. The ship spent 12 winters stuck in ice for 10 months at a time. The ship and crew traveled from Vancouver to Halifax in 28 months. While in Halifax, the ship spent 2 years in dry dock for significant upgrades. This was during World War II, and Halifax was the last deep-sea port in North America before traveling to England. There was plenty of equipment to assist in the upgrade. In 1944, the St. Roch returned to Vancouver in 84 days, making it the first ship to make the crossing in a single season. Currently, the ship is on display in the Vancouver Maritime Museum. Today, we have a Northwest Passage that connects Europe to Asia for a few months out of the year. For hundreds of years, expeditions were launched in search of a short northern shipping route that could connect Europe and Asia, but until recently, normal ships were unable to make this passage. Today, container ships and yachts take the seasonal trip to reduce travel time between Asia and Europe by months. The resident ship The World became the first cruise ship to travel the Northwest Passage in 2012. Decreasing ice coverage will result in increased shipping traffic to this region throughout the 21st century. Also in 2012, a 30-foot-long, 30-year-old fiberglass sailboat named Beelzebub II, with an international crew of 3, took 3 months to make their east-west summer trip. The ship was trapped in northern Alaska for this following winter and dry docked while the crew headed home. The Arctic was covered with ice until recently. In this 1979 satellite image of the Arctic, the pink area shows ice connecting Canada, Greenland, and Russia. This was the size of the Arctic for thousands of years. Climatologists now expecting an ice-free Arctic by 2030, possibly as early as 2020. This slide shows a dramatic climate change event that occurred in 2012, where we saw the minimum glacial coverage in recorded history. The yellow line shows average glacial minimum between 1979 and 2010. The picture shows glacial coverage at its lowest point, September 16, 2012. This video shows how the weather patterns during the summer erode the Arctic ice cap. This is a dramatic change over a short amount of time, another blatant example of global warming. The probable cause of such dramatic changes in a short time frame is CO2 emissions from civilization. The climate changes we are observing today will impact the shoreline for our children and grandchildren. Inches of ocean rise can wash away miles of coast. We have been measuring ocean rising 8 inches over the past 150 years. This is a noticeable change resulting in worldwide coastal erosion. Storm surges have a greater impact on harbors designed for lower sea levels. From Venice to New York City, major metropolitan cities are reevaluating their protection against rising ocean levels. But this ocean rise is nothing like the past. The global warming in our modern age has different geological issues than the past. This is a graph that shows the change in ocean levels measured around the world for the past 24,000 years. Before recorded history, the glaciers melted. Over about 8,000 years, ocean levels rose 360 feet. That averages over 4 feet a century and 6 times our modern-day measurements. This ocean level rise continued for thousands of years. Fortunately, we don't have to worry about the scale of flooding in modern time. There isn't enough ice left on the planet. If you want to learn more about the glacial melt in prehistoric times, check out my other video, The History Paradox. Scientists have concluded that the ratio of CO2 within the atmosphere was pretty consistent for most of the past 1,000 years until the 1800s and the advent of industrialization. At that point, CO2 emissions started to increase. Since the beginning of the industrial age, large increases in CO2 emissions coincide with global warming and climate change. This change has accelerated over the past 50 years. When Sir Franklin's expedition of 1845 was trapped in the Arctic, CO2 concentration was less than 290 parts per million. By 2012, concentration was 390 parts per million, and ships were traveling the passage without requiring icebreakers as an escort. Some people in the media and some politicians claim that scientists don't agree about climate change. They either misinformed or ignore scientific data. 2 formal surveys show overwhelming agreement to mankind's impact of climate change. The National Science Academies from 34 nations have issued statements that global warming is attributed to human activities. The list of nations includes 17 of the G20 nations. There are some naysayers. Most refer to a petition of tens of thousands of scientists who disagree. They have a website that you can download the petition, sign it, and mail it to them. They claim that they have numbers on their side, but there are over 64,000 PhD degrees earned every year in every area of study imaginable. Asking someone for opinions outside of their area of study is like asking advice from a dentist about a heart problem. This survey also relies on trust, since people check off their degree. There is no information such as school or graduating year. This is an example of lying with statistics. The overwhelming opinion of climate specialists is that our modern civilization is impacting the climate and causing global warming. By summarizing the timeline of travels through the Northwest Passage, even large attempts to cross the Northwest Passage failed until the 20th century. As we advance into the 21st century, ships are planning to travel this passage for recreational and for financial gain. Modern technology is recording the effects predicted by climatologists in the last century. If anything, climate change is accelerating faster than expected. We will continue to see dramatic climate change during our lifetime, resulting in a different planet for our children and grandchildren. We must respond to this change. Members of modern civilizations are expected to pay for trash and sewer through fees and taxes. That's covering solids and liquids. There's a cost to society for fueling emissions from civilization, and that cost has no burden on the polluter. Including taxes on emissions to cover gases is the next step, and we are ignoring that step at our own peril. Global warming and climate change aren't the only anti-science issues in the political arena. It seems the same people denying civilization's impact on the climate are also promoting creationism and have extreme opinions regarding reproduction. If you want more detailed explanation of the scientific issues involved in global warming on a glacial scale, check out the video at this link. The research for this presentation was also in preparation for writing the book Time Arc, A Cautionary Tale of Time Travel, A Compelling Tale of Global Warming. Time Arc is a science fiction social-political parody story. If you thought this presentation was insightful, you may enjoy the ebook. Thank you.